Welcome back to Mile High Hoops. Today we're talking about the Miami Heat, and I will say we do have 13 more days until the season starts and 12 teams left, so I'm going to have to put the grind on. But with all that being said, please like or dislike, subscribe, and leave me a comment down below about what you liked, disliked, or what you'd like to see in the next one, and we'll get right into it. So I've got to start with Tyler Herro. This doesn't look exactly like him. But regardless, he did just sign a 4-year extension. It's worth $120 million, and it does have $10 million worth of incentives. Pretty much kind of like Zion's deal, where like if he makes All NBA or something, then he gets to get an extra $2.5 million that year. But anyways, I think what this means for the Heat is that Tyler's finally going to be in the starting lineup. I don't think they're going to start Victor Oladipo over him this year. It'd be really weird if they paid this guy all this money just to have him be their sixth man still. But they do need to figure out kind of how to hide him on defense because defensively he's not great. He does run pick and rolls really well. He gets to his spots off the dribble and can pull up. He's a decent passer, and he does run the fast break really well. He likes to push the ball up the court and just full sprint and get it to a shooter or finish. And I think there's no harm in paying him this much money. At this point, with how big the salary cap is, it's not as big of a percentage as this used to be. It is about 20%. So, I mean, the roster itself is getting really expensive, but this is a very manageable contract. Now on to Bam. So I think Bam is the most valuable player to this team at this point. This last season, and I mean in his career, he's been an amazing defender, one of the best big men defenders in the league. I think he's going to get Defensive Player of the Year in the next few years, if not this next year. He is one of the best passing big men in the league as well. I mean, his assist numbers don't really show that, but and then as far as scoring, he did average 19 points a game last season, which was his highest of his career. But I think he's leaving a lot on the table there. There's definitely times where he is aggressive in games, and he kind of just can bully through people. And he's got such a good control of the ball and feel for the ball when he's dribbling it up the court that I think he needs to slowly expand that into his offensive game. Where he's catching it in that mid-post area and just if he can just rip through, get a shoulder into someone and just power up and finish, I think that's well within his wheelhouse. And I feel like he can get a lot more points out of each game doing something similar to that. He hasn't really ever shot threes. I don't think that he needs to exactly to become more valuable. And if he can just maybe shoot a couple mid-rangers, that's pretty good. He does do quite a few floaters a game, and that looks pretty good for him. I mean, he's got some good finesse to his game, so I think all these little additions to his game will be helpful. But yeah, no, I think Bam's on the right trajectory, and I think he's going to continue to be the most valuable person for them. Now on to the guy with a bigger dump truck than your girlfriend, Kyle Lowry. I tried to get a picture of him mixed with Nicki Minaj because even his butt is better than hers, and I thought that would have been a great picture, but it didn't work out. Anyways, I don't know where I'm at with him in his game anymore. I mean, this last playoff run, he was pretty atrocious. He only played 10 games and shot the ball terribly. He was pretty injured most of the time, and he's just getting old. He's 35 at this point, and as far as his contract goes, he's got 2 more years, so he's locked in through 2023, 2024. And I don't know how movable he is unless the Heat attach something to it. I think their best bet is to just hope that he can be good and not injured. But when he is on the court and he is playing and he's not hurt like the playoffs, I mean, he's giving you a good amount of assists. He's playing pretty good defense. He's rebounding the ball for how small he is, and he's just shooting the ball pretty well. I mean, he's a good, aggressive, well-rounded
point guard. I don't think he's anywhere near an all-star at this point, but he's still solid and probably above average starter level. So I think he fits well on this roster. It's just a matter of if he can stay healthy. And as far as most of the lead guys on this team goes, I mean, they're getting older, so something to look out for. Now, for Jimmy, I don't even think it's valuable to talk about him in the regular season, because in the regular season, I mean, he's just like an all-star level guy. But in the playoffs, Jimmy flips a switch almost harder than anybody else does in the league. And this last season, he averaged 27 points, 7 rebounds, and 5 assists, and 2 steals in the playoff games that he played. And he doesn't shoot the ball super great from 3, but he did shoot 4 a game and hit 34% of them. And I think for Jimmy, like, just staying healthy and making it to the playoffs is all he's got to worry about. Because, I mean, he can guard pretty much anybody that's not a center. He can, like, run the offense at such a high level. I mean, he's more of like a small forward, but like he basically plays point a lot of the time. Like, he brings it up, he runs a lot of sets, he runs pick and rolls, and he isolates really well too. He's just one of those guys that plays so hard the entire time that he's out there and seems to be making the right play like 99% of the time, you know? And so I'm just not worried about him. The thing that I am worried about is that his contract is extended until 2025, 2026, and it's $52 million that year, and he will be 37, I believe. That is a player option, but I don't assume that he will decline that at this point. So I think that's the only thing to really worry about. Other than that, Jimmy's going to continue to be great, and in the playoffs, I mean, he's a top, like, 6 guy. I don't know how he does it, but he does it. Now, I think the other topic that is important to discuss here is kind of salary on this roster, and Duncan Robinson is the guy to look at when it comes to salary. They gave him this huge, like, 4-year, $90 million deal, and most of the discussion around him has been moving him. And so I got a couple trades here. I think that looking towards the Suns, since Jay Crowder asked for a trade, I mean, Jay's been on the Heat before, and he fits. He does everything that they want him to do. So I threw in Duncan and then Omer Yurtseven, which for Yurtseven, I think he's one of these, like, I think he's super interesting as a big. Like, if he was in 2K, his offensive rating would be like an 85, but his defense would be like a 52. He doesn't guard pick and rolls at all, but he is just such a crazy talented offensive player. But it just keeps him being on the floor. But anyways, for a deal like this, the Heat are getting back Jay Crowder and Landry Shamet. They're replacing some of the shooting they were losing, and they're getting Jay, who kind of shores up their front court a little bit and just fits the system of toughness and all this. But I think this is a win for both sides. I mean, the Suns are getting rid of the guy that asked for a trade, and then they're getting a great shooter in return, another guy that Devin Booker and Chris Paul can work off of, and I think this would be helpful. You can add in picks if you'd like. I don't think they're really necessary here. Now, this is pretty much the same package. I threw in a second round here because I figured that these 2 guys that Heat would be getting are just better. But again, same idea. They're getting another shooter that can be a big body on defense. I mean, Doug's not a defender by really any means. And then getting Jakob Poeltl would be actually huge for them. I mean, he's kind of the same mold as Bam, just nowhere near as good. And I think that a move like this would really shore up them, like, their center play, because I don't think Dwayne Dedmon is, like, all that valuable to them at this point. And Jakob and Doug would just be great additions for them. And I know that the Spurs want to get bad. So how else to get bad other than move 2 of your better players? They would be taking on Duncan, which wouldn't be a big deal to them. I think that having shooters around your younger players is good. And then since Duncan is a fairly valuable player. I mean, his contract is pretty inflated, but I mean, he's a guy that the Spurs can always move later, and they wouldn't really have any issue doing so, especially once the years on the contract wear down a little bit. And now this trade is with the Jazz. I think that this is the best individual player that they would have a chance to get. If they could swap Duncan for Jordan Clarkson, and then I threw Rudy Gay in there for salary reasons. And I mean, Rudy's just another good vet that would fit this roster as well. And the Jazz probably wouldn't have any issues getting rid of him. But Jordan Clarkson would be a great six-man replacement for Tyler Herro as Tyler steps into the starting lineup. And I think Clarkson is he'd be a great guy for this team because if you look at the starting lineup, like none of them are like natural, like first option scorers other than maybe Tyler at this point. I mean, Jimmy steps into that role in the playoffs, but having this extra guy coming off the bench that can give you 15 to 18 any night, I think would be really valuable for this like tough defensive team is kind of what I'd classify them as. But I think this is a good move. Both sides would probably be happy. Same thing as before. I mean, Duncan is very tradable, and he's just another shooter to put around their young guys. They could maybe get some more value out of Jordan somewhere else, but I think if the Heat could pull this off, it'd be good for them. Now, as far as wins go, the Heat always end up being this team that's like kind of 4 or 5 seed and then string together a lot of wins somehow. And they usually do that by like peaking at the right time. Like they're not that team that peaks too early. And I think with that being said, they're going to be at around 50 wins like last season. There's so much good competition that, I mean, I don't think any team is really going to be 60s this year. But I think they're going to be up in that top 3-4 spot. 1, 2, 3, or 4. I mean, they could be any of them at this point. But I think they're going to make a deep playoff run again. And they're going to end up running into Milwaukee or Philadelphia, maybe even Brooklyn, and have some issues. And Boston. But I think that they're fully capable of beating any of those teams. It's just a matter of if everyone's healthy and if it's going to be a 7-game series with any of those teams, I assume. So I think they're going to be good. Championship contender for sure. Definitely not my favorite, though, for the championship. But again, thank you for listening. Like or dislike, let me know in the comments down below what you agree with, what you disagree with, maybe what you'd like to see in the next one, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.